Today we're going to do a quick kickoff for the ReFi Rate-athon, but I'm going to give a full overview of what it is, why we're doing it, and all the different kind of bells and whistles you should be aware of to have fun. Before I'm going to dive into that, I think it's good for some people here to do a quick intro. I think especially John, Paula, maybe Lavi. Would love to hear from you, maybe 30 seconds, why you're here, what your involvement is, and I think then I'll kick it over. Um, John, you want to start?
Cool. Hey everybody, John Ellison here, and I'm calling part of the ReFi DAO community. Super excited to see all these amazing projects sprouting up, and saw Luke and the Prime folks doing these rate-athons. I just thought it'd be an awesome way for us to make sense of who's in this for the right reasons and who's really putting thought behind building out these products, which in my mind play a really critical role. And yeah, along the way of shaping this community, met Paula Palermo from Impacta. And yeah, Paula, do you want to introduce yourself and say hey and what you're up to?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My internet's terrible, but I hope you can hear my voice. I'm Paula. I'm from Impacta. I'm here with João and Rafaela Romano. From our side, we are a hub for Web3 and impact with a lot of focus on solutions that are touching real-world problems. So that's how we all, PrimeDAO, and also with John and ReFi DAO, we are all working on impact evaluation and methodologies. So I think this was a great opportunity to bring everyone here for us to start having more knowledge and also understanding about all those new protocols. And also, of course, I'm a core heart member of ReFi DAO, and I also recommend you all to check what is happening there. So now I will pass to Lavi. It's you that you want to introduce yourself. Are you also from Prime Team?
Yes, exactly. Thanks, Paula. Yeah, my name is Lavi. You can also call me Simon. Part of the Prime rating team mostly, but I also help out at PrimeDAO in general. I started out with Luke about a year ago almost, when we had, I think we had the first rate-athon in July, and I helped organize that. So I definitely, I come more from like the DeFi side of things. I helped improve the methodology of like DeFi ratings, metaverse ratings, and so on. And I've led the product development for the past 6-7 months now. So what I'm really excited about this move into this new space. I'm really looking forward to learn with all of you guys together, so that we can dive into ReFi as well and increase our insights on that too.
Exciting. Thank you all so much. So I'm going to give a quick walkthrough of what's going to happen in the next 2 weeks, what you should be aware of, where you can go for help. If you haven't, maybe first things first, it's very helpful to join the PrimeDAO Discord. This will be the main place where we will be discussing everything ReFi and Prime rating related. There's a channel called ReFi Rate-athon. If you go there, you'll be up to date with everything. And this is also the main place to go for feedback and submission. There's a article that we published a couple hours ago. I'm going to also share it in the group here. This article provides a bit of a frame of kind of an overview of what's happening. Let me also drop that. Lavi, can you drop the link to the Prime Discord?
Yes, sure. I think it's already in the Discord for the raters, but I can also add it to the rest of the DAO. Yeah.
Perfect. So over the next 2 weeks, we're going to do this first ReFi Rate-athon. Maybe for the people that haven't been around that much here, a Rate-athon is a 2-week research/exploration event where normally a dozen of researchers come together and follow a fixed methodology to help make sense of the space. We've done this before for Metaverse and DeFi. I think with DeFi, we have about 120 reports, and with Metaverse, maybe 40 or something in direction, Lavi. And now we're finally delving into ReFi, which is a space that has been close to Prime's heart for a long time. We have a partnership with Celo, who is also the main group powering this ReFi Rate-athon. And for some time already we've been looking to help make sense and share common knowledge around ReFi, and also helping spread the general theoretical kind of knowledge that comes with the ReFi space. So this ReFi Rate-athon is a chance for all of us to come together and collaborate on our research methodologies, to share learnings, to share network, and really come together to move the ReFi space forward. So we're doing this together with ReFi DAO and Impacta. You heard them for a bit now. And we're actually kickstarting it right now. So this is the formal start of this 2-week event. It has happened in the past that we extend the event with another week if the appetite is very high and people are still too deep into it and they don't want to stop. But generally, it should take about 2 weeks. During that full time, we're kind of open 24/7. But most of our people are based in Europe/America. So if you're based in Asia, sometimes it may take a little bit longer for feedback and what so. But we're Web3. We're here 24/7. There are a couple of things that you should be aware of in relation to this Rate-athon. So first are the guidelines as described in the article here. We also have a Git book that we're updating constantly. We still have some things to add there. But one of the main things is that you can be reviewing by yourself or in groups of 2. Currently, we don't facilitate groups larger than 2 because the rewards need to be split between contributors, and otherwise it becomes a little bit more complicated. Also, there is a token list or report list, which I'm going to show in a bit. You're allowed to pick a couple of projects from this list, ideally not more than 2 at the same time, to avoid that too many people are either one going to fight over the same reports or that too many people want to do the same one. We're going to dive into that in a bit. And also, it's not possible for more than 2 people during one rating event to submit the same report. The general process of creating a report starts at the ReFi list, which is the one here. It's also linked in the article. I'm also going to share it in the group right now. This is a list that has been pre-selected by the 6 reviewers that have been collaborating over the past 2 weeks to gather a list of what we perceive most of the active ReFi projects right now. There's a couple hundred still that are missing from this list. We're just starting with this initial 90-ish projects that you can select from. There are currently 2 priorities. So there's a 2, which means a little bit less important or urgent, and a 1, which means it's quite urgent. The way it works is if you're a reviewer right now, you can comment your name in one of those projects that you feel, hey, I would love to dive deeper into this, document what's happening and what so. If you're working for a project, I would suggest not researching your own project. I think it's really good to specify maybe your name under Rater 2 and maybe highlight that you're part of the project so people can reach out to you. But in general, I would not recommend trying to rate your own project, as it might, no, it's going to be biased. Not going to lie. It's going to be biased and it's going to be really hard. I believe everybody has comment rights. So already now, if you see a project, you say, hey, this has a 1, and I feel that I know this or understand this project, or I'm just curious to dive in, you can comment your name under the Rater 1 name, and then one of the reviewers will accept it and then change the status from open to in review. Ideally, we would start off with 1 to 2 projects max per person at the start. And hopefully with that, we can cover most of the ones, at least the ones during this rating event, but potentially also a good chunk of the 2 priorities. What we did here is we have classified them not just in priority, but also in the main category that they're part of. So there are 3 main categories that we're using right now, which is backed by nature, which is anything from carbon to agriculture to reforestation. In that area, we have infrastructure, think of wallets, oracles, launchpads, anything that's not specifically backed by nature and has more of an infrastructure role. And finally, there's social good, with which you can think of things like donation, crowdfunding, circular economy, anything that's not directly connected to backed by nature, or more of a product or initiative instead of an infrastructure. Then we're also expanding on some extra categories, which go a little bit more in depth. Those are still a little bit work in progress, but you can already see some of them starting to shape up. So for example, carbon is one, oracles, funding, financial inclusion, and what so. These may update a little bit over the next week, but generally these are the subsections that we're looking at. And all of them also have a website and what so linked to it. So that's step 1, selecting or commenting your name here. So you're able to claim one of those or multiple of those projects. Then from there, we would move forward with the creation of a ReFi report. This is exciting stuff. We have created a V1 template over the past 2 weeks. Let me highlight that this is a V1.0. It's a very early try at making a decent ReFi evaluation framework. I have to be honest, it's been quite hard. It's not easy to put all these imported measurements into a couple pages. So we kindly invite you as well, as you're going through this, make sure to give feedback, make sure to share perspective. Cool, let me open it up, Jeremy. There you go. I opened up the registration page, the project list. So going back to the template, like I said, it's by no far perfect, but we tried our very best to do it as good as we can. As you're going through this, please feel free to leave comments, suggestions, resources, because we're also together learning here what it could be. I'm going to just scroll over the template, but you can do this in more depth asynchronously. But there's some aspects that I think I can highlight. So first, there are 5 main categories to the ReFi template. Starting with impact proposition, you could see it as value proposition in traditional projects, which dives into a couple areas. The novelty of the solution, does it introduce new innovations? Does it introduce new methods that previously were hindering impact creation? There's the impact market size, or the kind of problem statement. What is the size and the urgency of the problem that we're trying to address? Is it something global that needs urgent attention? Is it a local problem that is urgent? Or is it a nice to have problem to solve, but not necessary for humanity to solve ASAP? Based on that, we'll allocate scores. And then finally, the product impact fit or product market fit. Has this group or protocol been able to get some traction, some form of market fit already? Have they been able to prove that their solution is correct, or at least on the right track? I can slowly show how that works. So diving maybe a little bit better so people have a better understanding of how this works. So there's a description of a category, then there's those questions, which also have a short description of what we're trying to grasp here. And then there's a table, which is used for scoring. So let's imagine we're looking at the novelty of the solution, and here we're looking at the unique and new and useful functions that have been introduced, new technologies and methodologies and what so. Let's imagine we are looking at a project and we find a couple resources that suggest that they have introduced a novel innovation. Maybe it's a technology piece, maybe it's a combination of tech and people. We would answer the question, so we would write out the answer. And ideally also link to the resources. So you can just add a resource here. Let's say we do regeneration. Imagine you want to link this. It's always good to add these any documents that you use into the answer so people can trace back how you came up with these answers. Then we would say, great, this protocol introduces technical and organizational innovation. So we scored a 10 with this. And then after that, you can remove the table to make it a little bit more clean. So this is how you would generally walk through these questions. You would use the description and the scoring table in combination with your own researches and resources to come to an answer, give it a score, and then move on. So getting back to the kind of top level, how we're doing this, besides impact proposition, we have the traction, which goes more into the amount of funding, backers, supporters, and resources that the project have been able to create. Jeremy is asking if it's not better to leave the table up. So you don't have to, because we have the template always available. So reviewers can easily pick up the template and use it later on. If you feel that you want to keep it, I think it's okay. But the template report is always available. So both researchers, raters, reviewers, and projects that have been reviewed can always go back to the document and find it there. So diving into traction, first is project community and support. This looks into the size, commitment, and diversity of the community and the supporters of the project. It's not just looking at how many followers does it have on Twitter, but also diving a little bit deeper. How active is its community? How connected are they? How committed are they? How much of a shared identity do these people have? And also looking at the diversity. Similar for partnerships, but then looking at formal partnership between this group and other groups. Have they been able to create real-world partnerships or partnerships with other ReFi projects that might be helpful? Finally, next up, funders and backers. Who has been contributing resources to this project? Are the funders and backers value aligned? Are they well resourced? Are they well connected? Will they generally be able to help the project move forward? And also the produce public goods and resources. What has the project already done? Have they created resources that the general ReFi space could benefit from? And are these publicly accessible? Next up, tokenomics and governance. This section you only fill in if a project has a token. If there's no token, you can skip the section. That means that for this section, they get 0 out of 0. It's not included in the average calculation. So you can generally just write out skip, doesn't have a token, and move on. If they do have a token, there are some aspects that you're going to look into. First, the Genesis token distribution or the initial token distribution. You're going to look at the balance between stakeholder groups. So let's imagine a project that has 90% of the tokens going to the team is probably more centralized and therefore more prone to potential attacks than a project that has a wide distribution of stakeholders between users, contributors, backers, partners, and what so. The utility of the token. What does the token actually do? Does it give you a right to something? Does it give you access? Does it give you a claim on some impact made? Does it give you a vote? The more, the better. The ongoing token issuance. How is the token moved into circulation? Is it just yield farming, or is there a productive activity taking place when tokens are issued? Next up, the liquidity of the token. Can you actually trade or make markets for this token? Is it accessible, or is the token that only lives in 4 wallets and doesn't have any markets? And finally, if there's any governance used with the token, then there's that section as well. Can you speed up a little bit, because this is a lot and you can just dive into it later. Team, you look at credibility, reputation. You look at the relevant experience. Do they have experts in the area that they're focusing on? And the diversity of the team, both in terms of gender, culture, backing, and background. And the ability of the team to foster and coordinate resources. This one is a little bit tricky sometimes, but you generally look for any signs that the project has been able to attract and coordinate resources in an effective way. It's almost like kind of management capability of a group. And then we get to the, I think, most exciting part, which is primarily for projects that have already launched and are promising real-world impact. Hopefully, all projects in this ReFi Rate-athon are creating real-world impact. But if they do not have a live protocol yet and they're not doing it yet, feel free to skip this section. Again, they'll then just get 0 out of 0 points. It's excluded from the average, and you save a lot of time, but you're missing kind of the best part of it. If they do have a live protocol, then it's quite exciting. So there's 6 things that we look at. First, does the project already have a positive impact in the world? This is the only yes/no question out of this entire report. If it's a yes, they get 15 points. It's almost like a bonus. If it's a no, then you skip it, 0 points out of 0. Then we look at the clarity and execution of the impact roadmap. Does the project communicate and have a clear vision for how they're going to create impact? Next up, you're going to look at the utilization of Web3 technology for impact generation. Is it used, and is it used effectively? And is it also used in a way that respects all the users involved? Next up, the transparency and impact verification process, quite a crucial one. So how is impact verified? How is it measured? And is that data transparent and accessible? Then going to the scale of the impact, which is a little bit comparable to the impact market at the start, but a little bit more specific to this impact that they're creating. So again, is this more like a global problem that they're solving globally? Is it a global problem they're solving locally? Is it a local problem they're solving? Really looking into giving some sort of an estimate of how large the size is. And here for comparison, you can really take this kind of local, regional, global as a scope. And then finally, there's the communication, education, and contribution to the global synergy of impact action, which is generally how much are these impact, how much is this project contributing to the moving forward of the general impact space and how helpful are they with that. I expect there are a bunch of thoughts already now. I left comment rights open on purpose on the template. If you have any questions, any comments, you can drop them for the first few days in the report itself. Later on, we will be creating a feedback form where at the end of the rating event, everybody can give more in-depth feedback. And we will also host a post-Rate-athon kind of wrap-up session where people can discuss certain areas of the framework. That was a lot. So for now, this was it. That was the number, kind of the depth that we're going to go into this. The final thing that I wanted to show is the report submission and how that process works and what's in it for you. So if you have a report, the first section is creating it. We just walked through that. Then once you have a report and you feel that it's good enough for review, you can share it in the Prime Rating Discord in the report feedback section. Here you can say, hey, I've almost completed or I'm about to complete this report and I'm looking for feedback. Then at least one reviewer, sometimes more, will go through your report and leave comments on sections that they think you could do better or that they think you did amazing. After that, you can decide to implement that feedback if you got a lot of comments, or if you're already good, you can move forward with the submission step, which is submission through a Typeform. Here you'll have to submit a Google Docs and a PDF version of your report, and that will then be taken to snapshot vote for vote by the Prime Rating reviewers. If the reviewers vote for your proposal, that means that you have made a proposal that's on par with the standards that we have, which I think right now is about 70% of the cases, Lavi. Is that a good estimate? 70, 80%-ish?
Yeah, I think for the DeFi one, yes. And by the way, just an FYI, there is currently another DeFi contest going on. So if you see lots of other submissions coming into the same channel, that is from raters doing DeFi reports.
Yeah, correct. And then if it's voted against, that doesn't mean that it's the end. You can still do another round of requesting feedback, making some final improvements, and try it another time. So it doesn't mean if you get denied that, hey, this is the end. You can come back, resubmit, and hopefully pass then. So for every passed report, there's a reward. You get 150 Sela US$ and 200 D2D tokens for every report that is accepted. In addition, you also get 5 RXP, which is the internal level mechanism that we're using inside of Prime Rating. The more RXP you gain, the higher your Prime Rating level will be, and leveling up will allow you to access specific resources, participate in specific higher rater events. Also, we have extra prizes for 2 categories. Number 1 is the 3 best reports will receive a bonus of 1,000 CUSD and 1,000 D2D, in addition to 30 RXP. And we also have prizes for the most reports passed. So if you're the person with the most reports, you're getting a bonus of 1,000 CUSD and 2,000 D2D. If you're second place, 750, and if you're the third place, 500. So there are kind of 2 specializations that you could go for. You could say, hey, I'm going to rate as many projects as I can in a good quality. Or you can say, hey, I'm going to take my full 2 weeks and spend maybe on 1 or 2 reports and try to make really the best-in-class report you can possibly create. So that's the general flow. Like I said, there's a bunch to take in. There's a bunch to do still. The Medium article, the Gitbook, the Discord, it's all places that you can use. And if you have any questions, again, the Discord is the best place to go. I'm going to stop here, and we have another 5 to 10 minutes for Q&A. Yeah, or go for it.
Hey, thanks. This will be my first Rate-athon, so this is first of all very cool. I like the idea, and I hope that it works out really well. So just a question about a couple of questions. How many projects can you take on? So like I wrote my name on one of the projects right now, and should I write my name on another project that I want to do, or should I finish one and then move on?
Yeah, I think in general you could take on about 2 at the same time. I wouldn't recommend more than 2 because then you're also blocking other people. I think 2 would be the max. So you can claim 2 at the same time. Maybe you want to run them side by side.
Great. Should I reach out to the projects, or should this all be done with like publicly available knowledge?
I think it's a combination of both. So you should definitely reach out. However, you should not allow them to send you private comments and then take that in. The idea is that we promote kind of public access to data. So it's more like saying, hey, I can't find ABC. Can you point me to the right documents? And if they say we don't have them, you can ask them, hey, can you please upload them? Because I would love to include it in my report. But generally, we don't take into kind of personal knowledge saying, oh, I know that the founder is a good guy. So no, it's kind of needs to be somewhere on the interwebs for it to be verifiable by the other people.
That's awesome. And last thing I promise is, should we be able to explain why we rated something in the way that we had, in the sense that, I mean, I guess that there's kind of an aspect here of you're saying like there's the best ratings or the best evaluation.
Yeah.
So kind of how does that work?
So there it would be really a combination of the overall quality, kind of how well are you answering those questions, and also the resources attached to it. So how easy is it for someone to verify that what you're saying is correct? Let's say I say, oh yeah, carbon is a big market, period. Okay, great. Probably will not even pass. Maybe it will pass. Like, yeah, because we all agree carbon is important. But if you can link it to 1 or 2 reports that specify the exact size, that's probably a bonus.
Cool. Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Very welcome. Yuri, do you still have a question? I saw your hand go.
Yeah, but I think it was already clear. So maybe each project could leave like the links to the docs or something. Because I can think it will be hard for somebody to find that many information you are asking for.
I think that's a good suggestion. So I'm going to add another column here. If you are part of a project or just know the link to the main docs of a project, I think it's helpful to add it here. Like I said, if you're part of a project, it's also good to specify your name, maybe under the open. I think you can specify that under docs. Say, hey, this is the resources for ABC. If you have any questions, please reach out to any person.
Yeah, something like that.
Go for it, Jeremy.
I'm so excited to be involved in this. It's really cool. I was wondering, so if, for example, I'm rating an organization, like I'm actually kind of doing so much work and due diligence, and there's so many different fields that I could be adding here into this project list, whether it be a LinkedIn page, whether it be, all the different, there's so many different fields. How can we all be contributing to a much more kind of varied set of diverse like inputs, so that while we're going on, that can be aggregated, and even if not everybody has put that all in, but I just feel that data is super interesting.
I think that's a really good suggestion. Your suggestions so far, Jeremy, have been kick-ass. So what I would propose is you can pass the first ball. I'll create, if you can make a copy of this sheet and make one where we add extra input fields. And if we can pass that around, we can kind of agree as a group on which input fields we're going to track in the sheet as well, in addition to the report. I think that's super helpful. And it will also, I think that's really good.
Maybe an input here for like an idea. So at the current state for DeFi things, what we use is something called a TIP, stands for Template Improvement Proposal. And if you go to our forums, you can actually find the template for that. It's very simple, right? It says like, okay, section XYZ needs improvement because problem is ABC, and here is what we propose to improve that section. Or it could also be something like, we see there is a problem because this and this information is missing, and everybody will profit if we add that information. Maybe you can even use the forum if you want as like a place to discuss these things. And also on the question that came before, like reaching out to teams, I think it's a good practice to maybe start on Discord. First of all, use the search function, because quite often other people have asked that question before. So if you're looking for, I don't know, like where are the docs on XYZ, maybe just use the search function and try to find that first in Discord. And then if you still don't find it, then type in that question in Discord. So it's still public information. And you could basically also use that as a screenshot. We've seen that happening like quite often, that people would reach out to the team in a public space like Discord and use a screenshot of the answer to answer certain questions. Obviously, it's good if that can be verified from another source.
Can I then build on that? How and what format would you like to kind of be improving on this methodology in the iteration? How do we collate, for example, not just in terms of like input fields, but other different ways of thinking about the rating mechanism? How do we capture that when we get the feedback from the ratees, the organizations, or experts, etc.?
Yes, I would propose we really use all these kind of different ways we have to giving input on the report itself. So we have the one that you can just comment on if it's like specific things like small wording, or do you think, oh, this could be better described in this way? Then there's the improvement template if you feel like this is a really big section that we maybe want to add or something that's more in depth. And then also at the end, we'll circulate this kind of type form for specific feedback around specific areas. And then after this first, let's call it the first sprint or this first rate-athon, we can host maybe 1 or 2 sessions where we gather all this input and then collectively make sense of it. Because I think that we're going to learn so much over the next 2 weeks, and there's so many nice people already here, that probably it will be wise to gather as much as we can first and then try to make sense of it. I need to jump off, but I'm super happy that everybody's excited. So I think I can just leave this room open if people still want to chit chat for a bit. But thanks so much. This is going to be an exciting 2 weeks, and let's learn as much as we can.
Definitely. Thanks, Luke. Great to see you all.
Thanks so
Everybody.
much, everybody.
Ciao.
Sounds great.
Bye, everyone.
Have a good one.